Howdy, hey, hi, Beat Baseball World. We are back for another great episode of the Beepball Blues Show. What's happening, said dog?
Always the creative one. Always the creative one coming out with something new. I always think I can predict you. You threw me with the howdy hi at the beginning.
I don't even know who I've taken. Did I take that from Monty the Music Man or from Don Geronimo? Do you know?
H howdy hi.
Oh, there you go. That's Don Geronimo all the way. Shout out to Monty. Shout out to Monty the Music Man, though, an Indiana man, friend of. I shouldn't even try to pull up his name. Adam. I can't get Adam. Rodenbeck. Yay! Monty the Music fan and Adam know each other. But also from Indiana is our guest, long overdue, Mr. Jared Woodard. What's happening, Jared?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh, Jared. I remember when you were in diapers.
Now I got one in diapers.
Running around, diaper hanging off, you know.
He did that on purpose, though. Jared was the original let your pants hang off your ass, but he did it with a diaper. Just when we had Steve Stambaugh on, and we were talking about Jim Lyons' kids kind of being the original kids that started the Bam Bam fan club. I want to see Bam Bam hit. But I wouldn't put them all in the Bam Bam club. They really just were kids that followed our team, even though
they were the dog fan club.
Yeah, even though like none of the Dogs players had kids back then. Yeah. That's funny. None of us really do now, except for like you and Mikey.
That is true. That is true.
But we always had kids from other teams following our team around back in the 90s. And a big part of that was them Woodard kids, man. Jared, you were following us around before you even knew what was what, man. Just following your sisters more than anything. But you were around our team a lot in the 90s, man.
Yeah, no, I actually do remember some of that. Amanda and Jennifer spent a lot of time with you guys, you know, and I definitely remember, Bam Bam when he was dropping bombs, and the young dogs, a lot of defense, score some runs.
Score what we could. Defend always.
I definitely remember the defense was the teeth of the team. But yeah, I do remember back when Frank Mathino was around and hitting a lot of bats. I too young to really remember the Blackhawks and their 7-year run, but always obviously remember Kevin running around and Frank and all that stuff. So grew up around them too. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a quick question then. What is the first World Series you can remember being at?
That I really remember.
Yeah, you're like, man, I know I was there. I remember being there. What was the first one, knowing that you've been to pretty much all of them?
Well, the one I remember most distinctly is like in Sacramento. That was like the first one where, before that I always run the bases in between games and stuff. But that year I remember in particular doing like base judge stuff for some games.
Oh, okay.
And I just remember how big that field was, man. And it was forever and a day to get to the next field. And I remember Dad played with Fort Worth that year because Frank Mathino was pitching with them, and they had Sam and them guys. So
yeah, I remember that now, but I forgot that Clint played with Fort Worth that year.
Yep, yeah, I remember that in particular. And then there was another one. I think it was before that. It might have been in OKC, but the only thing I really remember, well, actually, it might have been in Sacramento. But Dad had like an ear infection, and he could field the ball really well, and you know, he hit really well, but he would miss every base by like 5 feet. So, I don't know what the difference was, but he would crash like he was getting ready to hit the base, man, just ground every single time. He was beat up, dude. I remember that.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, OKC was just the year before Sacramento, so that
I
puts you in
remember
the same memory range.
Yeah, because I remember that one. Like, Dad got in a collision behind the base. He was always getting hurt, but that's when OKC was really good with, you know, Tim and Benny Meyer and, you know, Barefoot. I remember Frank Fazio was on that team. Like, they had some – OKC was stacked back then in that World Series first came in.
David Allstat out there running barefooted.
You know, something my dad always says about your dad. Clint's always getting hurt.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yep.
You know, when we had Johnny Walker on a few months ago, and he said that the one player that stands out the most to him from all the years he's played is your dad. Just because he played so well against him defensively. You know, Johnny Walker's a pitcher, and your dad stacked up a lot of outs behind him. And, like, you know, you guys talking about him getting hurt and stuff, and I can remember bumping in. Anytime I'd run into your dad at the hotel, he's barely moving around. You know, it seems like he got beat to hell out on the field, but the next day he's out there getting 4 or 5 putouts a game, man. He was a trooper. He's been a trooper for this game for many years.
Yeah, always, you know, hard to walk, but could move on the field, you know. But he actually played with Johnny Walker one year. I don't remember what year it was, but he played with that Colorado team in between, like, the Bluffs in the 90s and the, you know, remade, you know, Bluff, if you will. We lost like 20 games in a row in the early 2000s. But, you know, he played with Fort Worth in that time, and he might even played with OKC one tournament in like a regional or something, but he definitely played with Colorado too.
I played with your dad on OKC in a tournament once back in like '94. I had gone out there with our coach, Don Robinson, and we were just there to scout because it was going to be the first year of the Dogs. And we were just there trying to get a feel for all the teams, you know, leading up to the World Series. And I was sitting in the bar with your dad and Hoodlum, and they're like, "What do you mean you're not here to play? Like your dad literally just had me put on the OKC roster." I was out there. I didn't have cleats. I didn't have anything, man. I was out there running around in somebody's tennis shoes, man. It was crazy.
Doing it just like they did out there in OKC. No cleats, no shoes.
Yeah.
Big curvy, no shoes. No, man.
Well, let's bring it up current. Let's start out jumping back to the 2021 season. In case anybody has been living under a rock doesn't know, Jared Woodard has been the pitcher of the Indy Thunder for the last 6 years or so at least. And you guys, what year did you start with the Thunder? Because I know you're with RHI before that.
For this run, it was 2016 was the first year.
Yeah, so you guys, even though technically you've only won, have won 5 championships in a row. I only put the only in there because it really had there not been a tournament canceled in 2020, we'd probably be looking at 2016. I can't get my words straight. We'd probably be looking at 6 straight championships, but technically for the NBBA, it's 5 straight championships. I'm curious, was last year one of the more difficult runs because you guys were already down Zach Buehler because he was playing on the USA goalball team in the Olympics, and then Tyler Rodriguez hurt his neck really bad before the tournament. So, like, before the tournament even started, you guys were down a couple hands. What was getting through last year's the whole year really one of the more difficult runs you guys had?
Yeah, you know, I would probably say the year was, I mean, the World Series, I think 17, it's going to be hard to get over how rough that was, just because, you know, we played a lot of games in 2017 and it was hot, but
And you guys came up. You won that one coming up through the losers bracket. Is that
you
correct?
lost your first game, right? On Wednesday or something like that.
Yeah, we lost Thursday morning, so we did.
Right.
You know, if you lose that Thursday morning, then you play 3 that day, 3 Friday. Then
yeah. Long road. Long road.
I think you guys ended the Heat's tournament that day. I think we were there. You guys eliminated us in an elimination.
I remember actually that was one of the more difficult games that I can recall playing in. You know, because that was the 3rd game of the day for both of us. It was hot as crap. We had both already lost, so you know, there's just a mental thing to that, and that was an ugly game of beepball, if I remember right. A lot of strikeouts, man.
it was a tough game. It was hard for us, you know. We didn't think that we would be playing the 3rd game, and so we lost, and it's like, oh, what, another one?
Yeah.
So,
but you know, to answer your question, I do think this was the most difficult season for us for a few different reasons. Well, first off, just having the year off from COVID. I mean, we had that tournament here in Indy, but other than that, you know, we didn't practice as much, no other tournaments, and then come back into this year. A lot of people's lives have changed, you know. So obviously, I had a baby, and then other people were getting out of high school, finishing up college. Maybe they even had a baby or had a baby on the way. And so, you know, it was just tough.
A lot of outside.
The groove of it, you know, yeah.
A lot of outside distractions.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you guys followed with regionals and stuff, but we were missing a lot of people in the regionals. I mean, we went to a few tournaments where we had 6, 7 guys, you know, so actually after the series, I got to play defense in Philly because we only had 6 of us, you know, so it was tough because like we didn't have Zach, we knew that, and then Tyler hurt his neck, so that was a real big blow.
And that's 2/3 of your like normal left field side. So that I mean, even though you have good players that you can plug in, like you're the left side of your field has been Zach, Eric, and Tyler pretty solidly for a while. So that forces you into a lot of change.
Yeah, and you know, actually, the week or 2 leading up to the World Series, it was questionable whether we were going to have Corey and Corey on, just because of other stuff going on in life. And so going into that World Series, you know, we're like, okay, are we going to be down 4 guys, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of people, you know, like you said, that's generally been our starting lineup, but a lot of people don't really know this. But really throughout this run, we've had about 10 or 11 guys who played a significant amount of time in the championship for us, but also the World Series. You know, there's been about 12. So generally it's been those guys that were starting and stuff, but I don't even remember a World Series where we had everybody healthy. You know, we was always missing a guy or two, whether they were there or not.
It at least prepares you to just kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah. And, you know, Zach didn't play with us at the regionals because he wasn't going to be there, you know, so we'd kind of been rolling with that anyway. But it was tough as far as, you know, just getting everyone together. And there was quite a few practices where there was only a few different people. So, you know, Iowa, we were only missing 1 person, but that's really the only tournament that we had most of our guys at this past year besides the World Series.
So one thing we have to talk about from the World Series is how the World Series ended. For the first time in the MBBA history, which now is like 46 years or in that, somewhere in there, the World Series ended with a walk-off home run. And I remember Jared just that entire day just being stunned, like, man, I can't believe that I just witnessed that. I guess more than anything because our sport never experienced that before. And you were the pitcher, obviously, with big Corey White, one of the MBBA's best offensive players at the plate. So it's not a surprise that Corey White hit a home run or that you gave him a big fat pitch to hit. But I just remember being stunned and thinking, man, that was way cool. What was that like for you going through that?
Oh, I mean, I was stunned too. Like,
did you have an idea off the bat, like right off the contact, that maybe it had a shot, or like how soon did it hit you?
Actually, I wouldn't say I did, because like he's hit a couple other home runs, and on those I'm like, okay, yeah, I think that's gone, But on this one, I think my focus was, I knew we were down by 1, so we needed 2 to win. And when he hit it, I'm like, okay, that's a run. I knew that he was going to score. I wasn't thinking it was a home run. My thought process was, okay, we got Corey and Kyle. Let's score, But when he hit it, I'm like, okay, that's going to be a run. But I didn't, maybe in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, it's got a chance. But I wasn't like, okay, I know that's gone. I just knew he was going to score. And in my mind, that's what mattered at that point, I'm like, okay, well,
at least tie it up.
Yeah.
Keep the game going.
And having him score not only tied it up, but flipped the order to where if Kyle or Tello wasn't able to check in, then Eric would get back up, So once he hit it, I was confident that, we could pull it out, but I didn't expect that to end the game, I don't even know that it's ever happened in a championship game, not that I can recall. Not just a walk.
You mean just like a walk-off period? Yeah.
No,
someone hitting a home run. Yeah. I for some reason thought that
the guy from Taiwan did it, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was against Houston in the 4th place game in Rochester, New York, in 15.
Yeah, no, I was there too. Yeah. I remember the speed that ball went over my head, and I was out in right field. Like, oh wow! I
got all of that one.
Yeah, I was not surprised that the guy like home run. Like, oh wow!
It was a bomb. Yeah, I remember watching that game.
No, I was impressed in the moment. Because I was listening to the Game of the Day broadcast team of Rosina and Matt, and they had Blake Boudreau with them, and it was Blake that picked up on it like almost immediately. Like I don't know, like I don't know how well Blake could see. Like I don't know if he saw the umpire signal. I don't know if he heard an umpire say it, but like Blake was on top of that right from the bat. It's like, oh my God, that this game's over. That's never been done before. It's like, how do you know?
Well, the field umpire did the motion, and then Jason Price yelled home run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like if you were on the field, you heard him yell home run. He said it pretty loud.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense.
But after the fact, I even, I had listened to the jet stream too, and they're like, why are they so pumped? They just tied the game. They didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And honestly, I bet a lot of the crowd was like that. You know what I mean? It's like I think it took a moment for everybody to figure out what happened, and part of that's because they never seen it before. Anyway.
Gerald, I have a question, right? Because I was there. I watched it. Well, not there. I was here on my computer in a beautiful temperature-controlled environment. And I thought it was cool in the moment, but as I had, just somebody who has been involved with Beepball, basically my entire life, as you have been, as I look back at it, I thought, like, in the championship game, the fact that the defense didn't get a chance to, like, do anything to stop that. Like, they couldn't have struck out the batter. They couldn't have fielded the ball. They just were out there, and that and then the game was over, right? They didn't get a chance to really do anything or be involved in the play. I thought, like, from a competitive, like, Beepball standpoint, that that kind of, as I looked at, it's like, oh man, that's kind of a drawback of that 2-run home run at the end of the game like that. And and it's just it's just a theoretical question or whatever. I know people disagree with me and all that stuff, but you being a lifelong person watching Beepball and defense and offense and all this and that, where do you come down on that? You know, do you think that the defense on some level should have a way to like prevent like the championship game being over or whatever? Or, you know, the makes
yeah,
sense?
I get you know, I kind of like, I don't know. It's like, as a pitcher, you know, Kevin, in this instance, standing on the sideline, you know, you don't, as a pitcher, when my defense is out there, I have no control over that. And as a defensive player, I'm sure it really stinks when somebody hits one and you're like, okay, well, I couldn't have done anything about that. Like, I in my mind, I don't feel like they, you know, the defense necessarily, like, if it was tied and it was only a 1-run shot, it would have been the same outcome. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
I feel like they did, maybe not defensively had a chance at it, but you had a chance to put more runs on the board, or, you know, to make that lead a little bigger, or there's what, 50 other plays in the game.
Right.
That, you know, you know, people hit walk-off home runs in baseball.
Something
You know,
Seth pointed out to me about that, though, that I never thought of. Like, I'm not on board of, like, I don't think it's a good rule for the NBBA, but I definitely had an understanding of where Seth was coming from more from our last talk about it. In regular baseball, like, it's the other team's pitcher that gets beat, like on a walk-off home run. You know what I mean? And with beat baseball and the pitcher and the batter being on the same team, like, the defense literally has nothing to do with that loss in the end, which, like, from that perspective, I understand. But
and just in that moment, like like Jared points out, right? I mean, you get to a certain number of runs at the end of the game anyway. It's not just that play.
Yeah, every game,
everything builds upon itself.
Yeah.
It's just that 2-run rule, right? That it's 2 runs, and that game is over. You know, so that's all. I just was interested in your perspective, being there and as the person, you know, who was involved doing it and who was watched Beepball your entire life. So.
Let me ask it from this angle. If you were on the losing side of that, would that make you feel any different about it?
Well, I mean, I would feel like they earned it. It's not exactly an easy thing to do.
Yeah, right.
You know?
That's an excellent point.
But, you know,
that is an excellent point.
And I don't know what the rule is, but, like, technically there's no fence. So, I mean, Richie could have went back there and caught it. You know, I don't know if that's an out if it never hits the ground, even though it crossed the line, because the home run's when it touches past the line. So, technically they do have an opportunity at it, you know what I mean? But but yeah, no, that's a fair point. But you know, I don't know if the question is more so about a home run winning it as it is about 2 runs, because I mean, if it was tied, it would have still been a walk-off home run, you know what I mean? So
no, it's more just that 2-run as it in that specific situation, down by 1. You know what I'm saying? It could only happen in that spot. But it just made me think of, I mean, because we were all there when they made the home run 2 runs, right? Neil said this, like, you know, I mean, this is the first time you could have really, I mean, you could only have a true walk-off home run for the last, like, decade, right, of Beepball, because they weren't always 2 runs. And so it was just that specific situation.
Yeah, originally the home run rule was that you just couldn't field a ball that that landed beyond the home run line,
right?
And have it count as an out. So, but it still counted as 1 run. But to me, that didn't really mean anything. Like, I've always been in favor of going ahead and if we're going to have a home run line, because every hit in beat baseball is a run or an out. So, you know, if we're going to have a home run line, it's got to define something. Or why
got to mean something, right? Why do it if it's not going to mean anything? No, I totally get it. I just wanted Jared's opinion on it and stuff like that. So it's all good.
Well, yeah, you know, and you technically could have a walk-off home run before the 2 runs. It just had to be tied instead of down 1. You know, the difference is, you know, you're down 1 and you have 1 batter. there technically is a chance to win the game, you know, with one swing. So, not that I ever think that this will be an issue again either. I mean, the odds, you know, like the way that the wind blew that day, it's just, you know, who knows.
Something I pointed out later that day, like to me, you know, like I grew up with ice. I had for like the first nearly 11 years of my life. So I grew up watching baseball, you know, being out in the yard playing football. And it's like you always come up with those, you know, like dream scenarios, making the big catch with no time on the clock to a touchdown winning, you know, catch, or hitting a home run with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th to win a game or whatever. It's like, man, you and Corey White gave beat baseball players something to dream for. Like they finally saw it for the first time. Not that people haven't, you know, not that we haven't sat around thinking about winning a game and beat baseball dramatically like that, but now everybody's seen it. You know what I mean? You and Corey did something nobody's done before, and like the younger players are just going to be dreaming about that. Our beat baseball world is such a small community overall, and to have just that one person do something that all the other players on one level or another probably dreamed about, to me it's just way cool. Like I don't know, I'm still kind of stunned about how cool it was, really.
No, yeah, it was awesome. Like, especially in the moment, man, just knowing Corey personally, you know, and the relationship that we have. And, you know, when he came back and stuff, like Corey, he didn't necessarily start for us right away when he joined us up in 17. You know, he was kind of a platoon in and out, and he took it very respectfully, you know, never complained about it. Mm-hmm. And was a true team player about it, you know, as I can say about many of the guys. But it was great, you know, just to see last year kind of getting it on, and, well, 2 years ago, really, and then really came into his form this past year. So it was awesome just to, you know, be a part of him with it. And then also for the team, you know, I mean, it was good stuff.
Yeah, another big part of your success last year at the World Series, in my opinion, was Miguel Tello on defense. I mean, I know Eric Rodriguez won the you know, defensive MVP, and it's, you know, arguably the best shortstop in our game now. But with all the, you know, we've talked about the players you guys had missing. Someone who was moving around and playing different positions throughout the summer was Miguel Tello, and he's been an all-star defensive player in his own right. But man, beyond like all-star type numbers, like that guy, like no matter where you plugged him in on the field, he made big plays for you last summer.
Oh, absolutely, man. Tello, he's a beast. Like, and you know, like you guys have talked about it on the show, and everybody in the community really, but shortstops get the defensive awards, you know, but especially when you get to Friday and Saturday, man, the guys in deep left or in the deep middle or any of those spots, even short right, like, are so essential to winning a game. And Tello, for a long time, played short right for us and played the right wing for us when Corian played short. And so he really stuck to those two spots. But then going into this World Series, you know, normally Adam or Kyle would play deep left. Adam hurt his hamstring, didn't get to play for us all week until Friday and Saturday on a hurt hamstring. And so, you know, we had practiced a little with Tello in left, but he's just a natural athlete, dude. You know, like, I mean, some people can just hear the ball and get the ball, and he's one of them, you know, and he played really well out there. The fields kind of made the spot fit him really well, because it wasn't just go over and knock something down. The fields were real slow. So those deep pop flies would hit and you can go grab it instead of having to knock it down sometimes. So he played it awesome, you know, all week.
Yeah, I really enjoy watching your games and just seeing, like, especially late in the game, you get in that fifth, sixth inning range, which with Seth and I coming up on the Dogs, like, we literally spent extra time focusing on like the last part of a game, the last 4 to 6 outs, and how important those are. And Miguel's just one of those people that one of those players that makes those big plays to close out a game. Like he rises to the moment, it seems like.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And that's one thing about this whole crew that's been together for the last 5-6 years, is that, there isn't a single person that's on that field for us where like they hit it over there and I'm like, crap, I'm confident in all of them to, make the play in the moment, no matter how big it may be. Like I'm, hit it to them, like test them. I don't, I trust that they're gonna pick it up. So, really fortunate that we've had that, consistency, like across the board in every position on the field. Like that's been, everybody talks about our offense, but we could have hit better in both those games against the Jets, and our defense and their defense picked it up. I mean,
both. Sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
I say Seth mentioned something about the defense and having a chance at it, and honestly, man, it was a defensive week. I mean, we didn't even hit 500 this World Series. I mean, if you look at the overall batting averages for the league at the World Series, we only had 11 people hit 500 at that World Series. Like, I don't ever recall a World Series like that,
I would have fit in great.
Yeah, I think there was like 20 or 25 over 400, So, I mean, it was definitely one of the lower scoring, more defensive tournaments that I've ever been a part of,
Both of the games you guys played against the Jets, both on Friday and Saturday, I just as a lover of the game, those were both like really hard fought, good defensive games in both days. I enjoyed both those games. You guys matched up well. So let's talk about because you just mentioned the group you've had together for the last 5 or 6 years. You guys have gone through some changes. A few of those players aren't going to be with you with this upcoming year, but you guys just released your roster, at least everybody that's on the roster for the upcoming year. You've made some it's added some new names, some that we're familiar with. Like I'm really happy to see James Michaels continue on playing, especially after the year he had last year. So James Michaels is joining you guys. I'm glad to see Toby Gregory coming back, getting to play with you guys. And Mike Lewis, getting the Lewis brothers back on the same team again. I think that's cool. There are 3 more names that I'm not as familiar with, hoping you could tell us about. It's Chris Dunleavy, Sean Walker, and Callahan Young. Am I saying his name right? Callahan?
Yeah.
Are all 3 of those? I know you guys picked up some of the goalball players that Zach Bueller's been playing with. Are all 3 of them goalball players, or what's their background?
Actually, Sean and Cal are goalball players. They're in the residential Paralympic goalball program up in Fort Wayne with Zach up there. So, but then Chris Dunleavy, actually, this is his, I want to say 3rd or 4th year, maybe. No, actually, I seem to remember that he was at the World Series in 16. So he's been playing about as long as we've been with the Thunder, but he just played with the Edge. And then last year he was with the Extreme. Okay.
I mean, his name sounds familiar, but I didn't know, like there's a Chris Dunn in basketball, and there's the Dunleavy family. So I didn't know if like hearing Chris Dunleavy was just making me think of basketball players. Like his name sounded familiar, but I couldn't have pulled where I was hearing it from.
Yeah, so he played some on the Edge and then played with the Extreme last year. He actually knows James really well. He came through the company that I work for, and James works for. And so, I've known him for that long. But yeah, no, he's a great addition. He can bang the ball and pick the ball up. But yeah, no, one thing is like Toby, as you know, played with us in 16, and he actually played in the championship game with us in 16. With a lot of these guys on the Thunder, and then also James and Michael, have relationships with a lot of us.
Yeah, I assume you played with them on RHI. Were they part of the RHI team when you were?
Yeah, there? And actually they were a part of the Thunder way back in the early 2000s too. So I mean, this isn't their first stint on the Thunder. So
right.
A lot of us are familiar with one another and have played together. Other than obviously Callahan and Sean, like Cal and Sean are both rookies, but they're athletes. They're in the program up there. They train all the time. I mean, they're fit. Yeah, and if they're on the Paralympic team, I think they can hear pretty good. So yeah,
no, it's a big plus. I think like it's great. Like in the end, I've already mentioned that the beat baseball world isn't a big community because the blind community is not a big community. So you know what I mean? We're trying to find athletes in the blind community, which is not, not to be repetitive, but it's not a huge community. So when you do pull, some new players on your team, even though these guys haven't played beat baseball necessarily, the fact that they're playing goal ball at such a high level, that gives you a big boost. Like going in, you're not going to have to start from scratch with them.
Yeah, that's what Zach was doing before he came on in 16, and I mean he joined us like 3 or 4 weeks before the World Series, man, and it took him no time, and he's, arguably the best outfielder in the game. He's a stud, and I've done a couple BP sessions with them, and I mean they've played baseball back when they were younger and stuff. So, there's definitely some raw talent and potential.
Nice. I heard Zach Bueller on the Eyes Free Sports podcast, and he was talking about his goal ball teammates. I believe Callahan is Callahan a pretty big player? Is he got good size? So he was talking about one of his teammates.
6'7", dude.
Okay. And I didn't know he was that big, for goodness sakes, but he was talking about what a good like athlete he is, like moving around on defense. Like Seth is 6'5", and I know from like when we would play goal ball against each other, like we would try to just throw as many balls at Seth as we could because he's so tall. It's harder for him than say me or Eric or somebody that's shorter to get down on defense. But Zach was really bragging up how well this guy can get up and down on defense. Have you found that, or have you not gotten that far yet?
Yeah, no, we haven't. We haven't done anything defensively because we're, in Indiana and it's cold. But no, I mean, I don't doubt it. Him and Sean both look like they're in really good shape. They look like athletes. Just from the little time I've spent with them, are very coachable. And I know obviously when you're playing another sport like goal ball on that level where you're, going to Worlds and going to the Paralympics and stuff, obviously they're coachable, they're talented, you know what I mean? So I don't have any doubt, about their ability to adjust to beat baseball from goal ball. And one thing that's really nice about it is that, Zach Bueller is up there. So he's around them all the time, and he made the transition. So he's going to be able to give them insight into, hey, this is what I noticed, when I first moved over. So I wouldn't be surprised if that don't speed the process along for them.
I haven't been in the mix so much that I knew about I didn't know that the Goal Ball Nationals was set to be played the same time as the Beat Baseball World Series. And I guess the United States of Association of Blind Athletes has decided to reschedule so that players could do both, which I think is really cool. I never thought that they would have considered that. But man, that would have had a big impact on your team in a negative way. if the two ran at the same time, I'm assuming.
Oh man, yeah, and they just announced it last week actually, and there's a awesome outpour of people like, hey, I want to do both, and the difference kind of from our team from, like, for instance, the Jets, they just like D Smith and Zach and Ricky Rizika, and there's one other I think that is like just started like really getting into go ball, and they was at a tournament in Arizona, and so for them, they're like, hey, I'm going to go to the World Series, not the Go Ball Nationals. I'm sure, For us though, it's a requirement for like the Paralympic team to go to that tournament. So there wouldn't have been no choice, like they would have had to go there. So they have announced it, and there was an email, like we emailed several of us emailed like the head of, USABA, Molly, and she replied back and said, hey, we're putting a team on it. We're going to look at alternate dates, and so we'll update you soon. So hopefully they're able to find another date. I'm confident since they put that out, but that's just great for athletes in general, like how small the community is, right? Like, and, let's face it, there's not dozens and dozens of opportunities, to go out and compete at a high level. And if you have, one of the two of the few opportunities, you don't want to take one away from somebody, and schedule it that week. So hopefully this will make it to where, this is considered in the future and we don't run into it, but I was glad to see that they're like, you know what, some of our athletes are going to have to miss one of them, whichever one it is. We don't want to make them do that. Let's let them play it both, so I really like to hear that.
Well, Jared, this is going to be an interesting, I think, year coming up, because we're going to be able to test some theories about Beepball, right? The importance of the pitcher, right? Because now, like with your player movement, right, all to the edge, for the most part, and the fact that the Jets have lost Kevin, right? So comparing like you to the Jets now, the Jets have a stable lineup, but now their pitcher's in flux. Whereas you still have a stable lineup because, as you said, you've been playing 10, 12 people anyway, but your lineup has gone through massive flux, but now you still have, the best pitcher in the game. And then we're also going to be able to see, well, how does that lineup, all those great players, do when they go to another team, right, with another quality pitcher and stuff like that. But I thought of that when I saw you talking about the edge and the importance of the pitcher. And I mean, I wonder how do you think that might play out with, the Jets having their lineup intact but not their pitcher, you not having necessarily your lineup intact, but you're still you, right? What is what is that role of the pitcher, right? I mean, is the pitcher the most important factor? I kind of think like if you guys win it, right, it shows kind of that perhaps, I mean, you guys are gonna have great players. I'm not saying that. We're talking about great on great, right? I'm not talking about anything less. You have great players all the way around, all three of those teams. You'll it kind of like if the Thunder though kind of wins it again, it kind of points to just that enormity of the pitcher, man, and in our blind sport that the outsized I don't know spot that the pitcher plays. But I saw you talking about it on Beepball Nation. I mean, how as a pitcher do you think, I mean, what do you think of your role, right, as it relates to the on-field wins and losses and stuff like that? Are you the most important person on the
Thunder? No,
like longest question in the world.
Yeah. Well, no, I get what you're saying though, but well, first off, there's a few different variables. Like I was just talking about this past year, the fields made this World Series very defensive. I've won a pitcher, and I'm sure Kevin, I know for a fact, have won pitcher awards and not won the World Series. And just like, I'm sure that you guys have had the best defense on the field and not won a World Series, so I personally, I don't feel like there's any one answer. And, one thing to keep in mind is that the Jets pitcher, he's had some game time with him. He looked well, what I saw, he looks like, he definitely don't look like a first year pitcher, which I think one thing that helps with that is that you have, like you said, a lineup of great players, I remember when I first came into the league with the team I was with, trust me, I did not have above 80% contact. And,
I think your first World Series game may have been against us. I don't think you pitched the whole lineup, but I think one of your first World Series games pitching ever was against us in 2003.
Yeah, I did. In 2003, I pitched a little. 2004 is when I really took over, but and I actually, with James and Michael and Kyle, we played on the Thunder together back in 06, and some of the Thunder joined the Bluffs in 05. But, that's another thing to keep in mind is that we do have some rookies, and I haven't pitched to Chris before, but I've pitched to, Toby and James and Michael before, just as, the guys that went to the edge, like Corey on Eric, like those guys, a lot of our players have been hitting off Kyle for the last 4 or 5 years, like just to get some BP in, they've went over and hit with him several different times. They've always hung out outside of the tournaments and stuff like that, so it's not like just a fresh start. They have experience together. Not game time experience, but they've put in a lot of BP time leading up to this. So, it's not really like a fresh start. So, I, like you said, like players matter just as much as the pitcher, like in my opinion. It don't matter if a player gets up there and gives me 4 different swings, like I'm going to strike somebody out too. Like, that's where it's at, so personally, I don't think that the whole pitching is the hardest part of pitching per se. Like it has a lot to do with communicating with your hitters, making sure they're in a good spot to give you a good swing, and controlling the mental part of the game. Not letting somebody get overwhelmed or frustrated or too hyped up, and really controlling that, on top of throwing a pitch in the right place, right? So learning your hitter, their mentality, their approach to the game, their approach to an at-bat in different spots, at different times, and all those things are much more important than a lot of people can throw a pitch in the same spot. Like I don't think that's the hardest part of pitching or the game, really.
You mentioned Kyle Kennedy is who you're talking about, and I thought your post that you put up kind of defending Kyle's numbers was really classy of you to throw that out there, because everybody knows that there's going to be pressure on Kyle with the lineup that they're going to have, but there's pressure on all of them. I think it's unfair to put so much of it on Kyle, like, oh, if they don't win, it's Kyle's fault, and I think that's garbage, really. And I thought that your post showing the numbers that Kyle has put up and the short, the contact numbers he's put up in the short amount of time he's been doing this, I thought that was classy of you. A big thumbs up for that.
Well, he's put up admirable numbers, and one thing that Kyle's had that some pitchers, generally, like, you start with a team who might have an all-star or two, he has had a solid lineup every year that he's pitched, but he hasn't been like a crap pitcher.
Yeah, it's not like they've been finishing like 11th. You know what I mean? They've been a top competitive team. I don't know.
Well, and like, look, I'm all for, like, oh, somebody wants to say, hey, you had a good game, you had a good tournament, whatever, you're good. But don't be like, Neil, you're really good on defense because so Bam Bam sucks. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be used as that, you know.
Right. You don't want to be like, oh well, man, everybody's not Jared, so everybody else sucks. No, that's not the case, right?
That's not, you know.
You're right. Yeah, no, I get that.
But me and Kyle had a good relationship. I mean, anytime, you know, he asked any questions or we talked, you know, he caught for me when we were extreme for a while, and so, you know, we've known each other for a long time, and, you know, any questions, whatever, then, you know, we talk. So
that dude's a big fan of the game too. Like not what's going on now. Like he loves the whole history of the NBBA. I love that about him for such a young guy that hasn't been around it very long. You know, as far as your Thunder team goes, kind of before you released your new, you know, the new additions to your roster, I was sending Seth predictions. I don't want to throw out any of the names I was predicting, but I was 0 for all of them. I didn't have anything right. Not that I expected you guys to just start bringing on players from out of state by you know, big numbers, but I did think maybe with the number of players that you lost, that a few out of state players may trickle in just to, you know, to add back to your roster. But man, I had to go back to Seth afterwards and say, man, I'm impressed with like Book and Ron Brown, Jared, and them sticking to their guns and keeping it local, and at the same time adding some good athletes to their roster. I was impressed by how you guys just despite, because there's no way around it. You lost a lot of talent, lost the offensive MVP, defensive MVP, plus a couple other all-stars. That's not easy to replace, and it would be easy to panic, you know, hit the panic button and bring on bodies to stay at your level, but you guys are staying on track with the way you've always done it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you know, and we're pretty fortunate that Indianapolis, I mean, honestly, man, if there was the volunteers and the money, Indy could support 5-6 teams. I don't doubt that. You know, not to say they'd all be top 6 teams or something, but there is, you know, and I think part of it has to do with Book and his, you know, advertising and getting the word out for the last 20 years. But Beepball is really well known in Indianapolis, you know, and not just among the blind community, but also a lot of like, you know, sponsorship and things like that. So
hey, listen, you guys get your and actually I think I'm wearing, I forgot to check with you. I think I'm wearing my Indy Bonanza shirt from last year. It does
look like, yeah.
Excellent. But I mean, the fact that you guys get your regional tournament on TV, you know what I mean? That no matter how big beat baseball ever would have been here locally in California, we never could have got a game on the regional sports network. It just never would have happened.
Well, and the coolest thing about that, Neil, is that Book has managed to, you know, we have sponsors that have now and look to be continuing into the future to continue to support that each year. So not only do we get that, but the first year, you know, we paid mostly for it out of pocket, and we got some sponsorship and then build it up the next year. And now it's like kind of paying for itself. So the network here is really on board with it. They really wanted to do our championship game and our third place and undefeated game for the World Series, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But they're all in on it. And so it's nice to see that, you know, and to have one network do it. I think what we'll see, and we saw it last year, is that they're going to become more familiar with the game. Their announcers will become more familiar with the game. And so then it'll just get better, you know. And now we went from just a championship game. We also have one on Saturday afternoon. So it is cool stuff. But, you know, to circle to what you mentioned about the turnover of the team, I mean, look, there's no denying the athletes that Corey and Corian and Eric and Tyler, man, and it's been a privilege and just a blast to play with those guys. And I'd be lying if I didn't say, you know, a lot of us are very sad, and you know, I've told them this, you know, and they know how many of us feel about it. But you know, we also have other guys too. You know, I mean, seeing kind of the conversation about it afterwards. I mean, you know, we have Bueller and Lewis and Rodenbeck and you know, Tello. These guys like Dykas. I mean, Ikram has played well for us. You know, and we had a pretty deep squad. And before adding obviously Chris and Toby and James and these go ball guys and Michael, you know, like it takes a village, man, to do it. You know, it isn't just, you can have 6 guys, man, but as I'm sure you guys can attest on the Dogs, you went through transitions and stuff with players and things like that. You know, when you have
the reason you, Jared, won your first championship in 2007 over us is because you guys had Eric and Danny instead of them being, you know what I mean? Seth and I, but more than other people probably understand to lose championship caliber players to a competitor. We went through it. We had to play you in the championship game with our players.
Yeah, man. You know, and I enjoyed every minute of it. You know, but that, you know, Steve Samball, he was on the show. He was on that team, man. There was a lot of good guys on that team. And one thing about that team is they were all-stars. We were like 10 deep, right? And so when you know, a couple guys go down and you need people to eat some innings on Tuesday and Thursday. And so it's more than just 6, you know, that it takes to win World Series. You know what I mean? You got to have a few guys like to step up or to take some time off somebody's shoulders. Like it's a team effort, man. And obviously, you know, you can have a stacked roster, but if you don't play as a team, I mean, you know, just because you're loaded on paper, don't mean you're gonna win the thing. You know, so
we see that in professional sports a lot. Like,
and that's why I get back to say this is going to be an interesting year to see how all this kind of plays out. You know, in Beepball, because we've seen it in different sports and this stuff, but now we get to see, you know, how it all in this like kind of experimental year, how it all works out. it'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting.
You mentioned Gerald Dykas, who's been a regular on the offensive all-star team and primarily has worked as your DH with the players that have gone, being so many, you know, the defensive players you depended on a lot of the time. Any chance we're going to see G out on defense with this new group?
Oh, man. I mean, you know, I don't know. Like,
sounds like a big maybe. Not.
I you know, he has went in the field for us, you know, in a couple of like Tuesday games over the years, but you know, there's a reason that G's not on defense, and he'll attest to that.
I've heard him make jokes. Like, I listened to a lot of your streams, you know, the games that you guys stream, and I've heard him on the sidelines making jokes about not playing defense or whatever. So it seems like a two-way street.
Yeah, he's gonna need some big practice time, man.
Fair enough.
All right, Neil. Hey, Neil, what, you know, we're like an hour in now, man. So if you're going to tell us your big idea.
Yeah. I was actually just going to transition and say, if you guys didn't have anything else on last year and this upcoming year, I'll wrap this up on some food for thought. A little food for thought.
Yes.
So
we've ended our 1,000th hour on the Indy Thunder on this program.
But before we move on to this last segment, Jared, do you have anything else you wanted to add in there that we didn't touch on?
No, yeah, I think we're good.
So this last thing is something that I've never actually shared out loud, but going back to when COVID started, I was just like paying attention to, you know, how cities all across, I mean, worldwide, but just looking at the United States, like cities were all on shutdown. Businesses were struggling, and just that the whole world was kind of in a makeover mode. The way I was looking at it, like a lot of things, a lot of like restaurant franchises were closing down for good. Restaurants that have been around forever and ever, just because the world was in this massive change. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it from beat baseball standpoint. And I guess more specifically where this conversation comes in is thinking about it from a marketing standpoint. I mean, the bottom line is the MBBA has been around since 1976, and we've never really been able to secure any kind of big, long-lasting sponsorships. There have been like some big names, General Mills, and back in the day in the 80s, put some big money behind a few of our World Series tournaments. And we've more recently been getting some nice support from Jersey Mike's beyond like providing the sandwiches at the World Series. But I don't even know that I give the MBBA as much credit for that as I do John Parker. I think I could be wrong, but I think John Parker has more to do with that relationship than the MBBA did. Now, one thing that has been thrown around since I've been in the game in the 80s and still gets thrown around is the surprise that we can't get any play with Major League Baseball. Like the NBA, National Basketball Association. I don't know how heavy they sponsor, but I know like the teams and the league on some level are involved in helping out with wheelchair basketball. And it's always seemed like it'd be kind of a natural fit for the National Beat Baseball Association to have a similar type or some kind of relationship with Major League Baseball. I believe over the last 10 years, I've had a small brush like around media, but more than any of my small brushes in media, I've paid a lot more attention to marketing and what sells and what doesn't or whatever. And I think coming out of the pandemic, it may be a good time for the MBBA to consider rebranding itself. And I guess in the end, by that, I mean come up with a different name. I think the letters MBBA hurt us in marketing, at least like with the hope of having any kind of relationship with Major League Baseball. I believe with 100% certainty, Major League Baseball is never going to put anything on their website that says MBBA because it sounds too close to one of their major competitors, the NBA. Like Major League Sports, they're all in competition with each other for sponsorship and money and fans and whatever. And even though I understand that just letters shouldn't like deter people so easily, but they do. I mean, that's just anybody in marketing will tell you that. Like when people come up with marketing strategies, every little part of that is very important, including things like letters you're going to be throwing around. And I understand it sounds silly, and there's a lot of people that are going to easily dismiss this, but it's absolutely true. And I don't hold it against our founding fathers of the MBBA because in 1976, professional basketball wasn't really a thing. There was the ABA and the NBA, and they both were like in financial ruin. The ABA went out of business somewhere around that time, and the NBA was not doing that great financially. The NBA didn't really take off until like 79, 80, and more through the 80s with Magic and Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. Like, that's when the NBA really took off. But I think it's kind of, for one, confusing to people that we're a blind sport based on baseball. But when you see our letters, it looks like we're associated to basketball. So I guess I almost called you about this, Jared, because you were the second vice president at the time I was thinking about this. And I really just wanted to throw it out there and get your reaction and see what you thought as somebody, because the second vice president of the MBBA is mostly in charge of like PR. And so I guess since you were the second vice at the time, I was interested in throwing it out. And now I'm just throwing it out there. I want to get you, both you and Seth, both of your reactions on the thought of it. But I mean, what do you guys think? And I'll go first with you, Jared, because again, you served as the second vice. But I mean, in 45 years, the MBBA hasn't really been able to hit a home run sponsorship wise. So I don't see anything wrong with just considering rebranding the league for the next 45 years and trying to do it different. I don't know if we would have any more luck, but what do you think, Jared, of the thought of maybe rebranding the league, changing the name?
I think that I think it's a valid thought because you're right. Like that, MBBA, it's a mouthful. I mean, you accidentally forget a B and it's going to basketball. If you put it in.
Yeah.
So, but honestly, I think there are a variety of reasons that we haven't, as you said, hit that home run and been successful with really securing a huge sponsorship outside of just the naming of the league. One of the major things that I felt when I was in, in the PR role and second vice is my goal. And one of the purposes, first off, I wanted to do game of the day to give those at home who are, or family members, friends, former players, an opportunity to watch more than just who plays on Saturday. You get more footage, like we've been in the championship game for the last, 5 years. And so you have the Thunder and someone, and 2 of those years it's been the Jet. So you don't really get a lot of footage, of one.
Not
and
a
that's
lot of variety.
With the NBBA, there's generally Taiwan comes, they're in the championship game every year, so the variety, but also just to capture the footage, to create content, because we don't have any real advertisement videos, like to put out on social media. No, you see these 30-second commercials of people putting out like nonprofits to really try to grab some attention and grab some money and things like that. We don't have that material. And I think one of the major results of that one of the reasons that is because if you look at the other organizations that are successful, that are nationwide, it's because they have someone who that's their job, right? All of us are volunteers.
Yeah.
Some of us may be retired or not working that much or not have a family or something, but I mean, I put in a lot of hours to barely make any progress. I felt like, it's really like a 30-hour a week is what you would need to really rebrand and create content and all that stuff. Another thing I think that we have going against us as a league is that in that relationship with the MLB is when you think about our league, we're made up of teams from different cities, right? And so the teams support themselves. The league don't support the team. So
right.
The Thunder need to make our own relationships. The Renegades, the Blackhawks, the Titans, all these teams, Houston, whoever, need to make your own relationships. So whereas we have good relationships with the minor league team here, as far as the league's concerned, we bounce around every year, right? And so I've always felt I felt like that's good for the league, but more and more that I've thought about it over the last 5 years is I personally think what we really need to do is pick 1 or 2 cities, maybe even 3, but no more, and have it a reoccurring event, because that's something that's made us successful as the Thunder. And I'm sure Austin would tell you and Boston would tell you is that, and the Comets, the reason these tournaments do so well with volunteer and sponsorship and everything is because it's an annual thing. The reason Ames does good with their World Series is we've been there several times. They know what to expect. They have those relationships. People know about it. And so as a league, we can't develop those relationships because we're like, oh, we'll be there in 5 years and probably again, and which is something that Wichita wanted, envisions there. They're like, hey, we want to try to make this an annual thing, like to put it in perspective, last year, I think as the Thunder, we spent like $50,000 or something, and a lot of that
on the World Series, just going to the World Series or for the whole year.
Yeah, like 53 or 56 or something, and our bank isn't exactly empty, and that's because we have relationships here, and it's something that books build up over 20 years. Whereas, if we have a tournament here every year, we can show the community what we're doing. They're more likely to give, and the NBBA don't have that. It's hard to go, like you said, John Parker had a relationship with the owner of Jersey Mike's, and that helps us. But like to go to the MLB and say, hey, we're going to have it in a different city every year. It also might be in a city where you guys aren't even located, it's hard to develop that relationship. So like, Boston,
see though, there's space here, Neil, right? Because you're talking rebranding, right? And he's talking more nuts and bolts of rebranding it through kind of changing the structure of it. You could actually like rebrand the name as you introduce a new, more a stronger NBBA, and that would then hold these tournaments in central locations or whatever and all this and that. But as far as your name change, I'm feeling like Jared said, as he said with Gerald Dykas, I'm not sure he might get out there on defense. I think he didn't like your name change idea, though, Neil. Well, I don't know. Let's pin you down. What do you think, Jared? Can we rebrand the league name as we rebrand what the league actually does?
Well, I think you could do those things concurrently, right. And I don't know, like, because the question is like, is the footprint out there big enough to where rebranding would hurt us, as far as the actual name of the association and things.
People looking for the NBBA and then, how deep are we already embedded into,
which I do feel like in the last 5 years, I mean, maybe we haven't been seeing it in sponsorship dollars at the league level, but I do feel like teams are a little healthier in that sense, and that definitely more people are aware of baseball and BBA, with social media and everything. Like, I think it is improving, but I do think that we could be a lot further along than we are. And some of those things that I just mentioned, I think is the reason being, another thing is like, we have a rotating board, right? And so as you get someone, okay, there's their 3-year term. What I noticed from being on the board is like when I first came on, there is no, hey, this is what you do, what do you want to serve on? And like I said, we're all volunteers, so I don't fault anybody, but it's hard to pass the baton, if you will, to the next administration, the next person who takes your role, whatever.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. There's so much turnover with our board taking on such a huge, like, it's, if the league were to try to like take this and run with it and rebrand itself, it'd probably be because there's a group on the board right now that thinks it's a good idea. But if half of that group, their term runs up and other people get plugged in that aren't in favor of it, it'll be impossible to carry over with any kind of confidence or I don't know. It would lower the chances of success, I guess, having a lot of turnover while doing so.
Well, and I think that's why we have fractured relationships like throughout the league. I mean, for instance, one of our sponsors here in Indy is Tito's. Tito's, we have a relationship with Nike, the minor league team, right? And we have an organization like Bosma that supports us. And so all of the teams in the league have some type of relationship like that. For the Edge, it's RHI, and Bosma helps them too. I don't know who it is with Boston, but like I know that, the MLB video that came out 2 or 3 years ago on Beepball was from the East Coast. And I know Boston and Rob and them have a relationship with Easton, and so we do have these connections as a league. It's just that it's on a team level.
Fragmented.
Yeah. And so it's hard for us as a league to reach out to the MLB, and they're like, oh no, we support your teams. We just don't support your league. You know what I mean? And so it's like, and it's hard to get that, I think that what it really takes is that we have an executive director, a paid position, preferably 5, obviously, but I mean, it's going to take at least 1 paid position for someone who puts the 2,080 hours in a year to have a concise, consistent message and plan to where it's not changing all the time, really make progress.
Seth, any thoughts?
Neil, well, just to respond to the name, and I don't know about the whatever, the NBA and its connection or whatever, but I've always thought the NBBA is a difficult turn of phrase. Let's say I don't feel like it flows. I feel it's difficult. So changing the name would be, I'd be all for it.
Just because it would be easier to say, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know how it would. Now Jared talked.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not a real strong argument for like what I'm saying, but
yeah. So, but Jared makes some good sense here in what he's saying. So, so I guess I'm saying I'm on the
Neil,
fence.
what's the suggestion?
Yeah, that was the other good thing.
I really don't. I mean,
you're just an idea guy. You don't have anything to bring to the table. You've been thinking about this for 2 years and you ain't got a name.
So I have, I guess, ideas, but they sound so generic, and they sound so much, because like so much of this was based on like not being able to establish a good relationship with Major League Baseball. But going Major League Beat Baseball is just like, hey, look, we're trying to get your attention. You know what I mean? National League of Beat Baseball. I don't know what would be like the good name. And I don't know that a different name would give us any more success than MBBA, but I do believe that having the letter so close to one of Major League Baseball's biggest competitors for advertising money and all that stuff, I don't think that helps us on any level. They're never going to put MBBA on their website, and mostly because like the world is that simple. First impressions are tough to get past. Somebody looks and says MBBA, why are they messing around with basketball? And they just move on. They're not even going to be interested, I don't think. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about all that. Yeah, just all food for thought.
I do buy your letter. Well, I don't know if I buy the letters thing, but I remember a scene in The Sopranos when somebody was trying to name their restaurants. and their wife's like, no, letters are very important.
Yeah.
So I feel you, man. I feel you.
It is a mouthful. It is a mouthful.
It is.
And like you go and ask a sponsor for dollars, and you're like NBBA, National Beat Baseball Association. Like it is full. I off the top of my head, I can't say you're gonna think of anything that would be better.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, because you figure it's got to say Beat Baseball, but I mean, USABA, like that's kind of a mouthful, and if done pretty well, and I do think we have stuff in Cooperstown now. Like we go to the All-Star weekend, but one thing that a lot of the huge nonprofits that are nationwide, generally there's a headquarters, right? Like a base city, where they have really good relationships. And I think that's really what's hampered us. And also, a lot of times when somebody's donating big money to nonprofits, it's because there's big names on the board. And that's another thing. We only have members of our league on the board. We don't have
no celebrities or
something,
corporate involvement.
Right. Like I know that we're a nonprofit, the company I work for, Bosma, and our CEO answers to the board, and the board is full of business owners, executives at other businesses, accountants, lawyers, that aren't connected to Bosma. And they run our organization like a business, and these are people who have connections, so I whatever it is, whether it's name change or changing all this stuff, like it's not a 1, 2, 3 year plan, it's like more 5, 10, 15, It's
no, that's fair. And developing, going, just back to the way the MBBA works, and with board members coming and going on a regular basis, it would be really hard to develop that kind of a long-term plan and see it carried out all the way through because of the turnover.
Well, the long ones are like what, you, Janet Leonard, Jerry Wendell, like, you guys have been now Steve Garrett, like, and been involved, Blake, on the board for, you guys are the kind of consistent, over it's generally people who really love the game, who stay involved for long periods of time. And that's really the only consistency we have.
Can't leave John Lykowski out of that. that man's been serving this league so dedicatedly for so long. I love that dude.
Well, and family. Like,
yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. Look, I knew coming in, like, I know from having served many terms on the board of directors, this is not a league that like accepts big change very well, especially the old timers that have been around like me. It's like, what, are you crazy? Change the name. But I'm not thinking about it for any other reason than the next 45 years. You know what I mean? Trying to make it better than the last 45 years is possible. So again, just food for thought, maybe somebody listening would get inspired and come up with a name that targets a lot of the things we're talking about. I don't know, but nothing could get changed if it isn't at least talked about a little bit. And so we have this little environment where we could talk about whatever we want. So wow, throwing it out there. Wanted to do it with a couple people that I thought, good minds, good voices, and get some good feedback. So we'll see where it goes from here. Well, Jared, man, do appreciate you coming on. Jared was the second guest ever on the Beepball Blues Show, episode number 3. And here, just a mere 70 episodes later, this is episode 73, Jared, that you've come back on. So I appreciate you, man.
Wow.
Had fun talking with you.
It's been fun to, hear about other people and their ideas and their experiences and all that stuff with the game. So always fun to hear.
Not surprised we've gone as long as we do. When I called Jared, Seth, just to see if he'd come on the show back in like December, we were on the phone for like 2 hours just talking Beepball. I don't even know what we talked about, but I know we talked a lot of Beepball that day, man. It was a fun dude to talk beep baseball with.
Well, yes, we shot past our time a little bit, but we're all good, Neil Dog.
We will wrap it up and get out of here. Thanks a lot, Jared.
Yeah. And hey, Bam Bam, I see you got a Cowboys hat on there.
Hey, always, forever and forever. Win, lose, or draw. Win, lose, or draw.
Those 49ers, though,
jeez, man. God, man. Don't even, like, as I say, my season isn't over until the 49ers have been eliminated. So it's it's the Niners just being, I feel like I'm the reason that they've gotten this far. They were down 17-0 to the Rams, and I was like, oh man, let's watch the game, let's turn the Niner game on, right? And at that moment the tide swung, right, and the Niners end up winning that game. I see last night the Packers are up 10-7 or 10-3. I'm like, oh man, I could finally watch it in the fourth quarter, and there goes Aaron Rodgers getting sacked, and from that point on,
the same time I turned it on.
It went bad, man. It all went bad. So, it's horrible.
Even though I've been a lifelong Raiders fan, Jared, my entire family is just stacked Niner fan after Niner fan. So this tough time of the year right now for me. I was gonna say, when Seth brought up the playoffs, I was like, man, I thought the one good thing is we didn't have to, with the Cowboys getting eliminated, we no longer had to start the show each week with Seth bringing up what's going on in the football playoffs.
When the Niners got in, I'm like, oh, that's a dangerous team. I would not want to play them. But actually, their quarterback went to the same college that I went to my undergrad at, and just like a small university.
Where did he go?
Eastern Illinois University.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so about 45 minutes from where I grew up. But yeah, he left the year before I got there. But man.
Let me tell you, he blows. I'm sorry. He should be in the NFC Championship.
I wasn't saying they're winning. Blows. He's there. No, they got an awesome defense and a strong run game, man. They just match up well for playoff football, really. They really do. But
yes. Yeah. I won't be bitter. I was going to talk about the 14 penalties, all that nonsense, but
that was crap.
That I won't. Cowboys were.
Who's your team, Jared?
I'm a Bears fan.
All right.
Yeah, Bears.
Bears.
No, I feel your pain much more so. We keep paying all kinds of quarterbacks to sit on the bench for us. That's what we do. But we're like, don't worry about the O-line. Let's just pay these guys $30 million to sit on the bench. Whatever.
Never have too many good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, enough football talk. See, we've already distracted everybody. Nobody's going to consider my food for thought. See what you guys went and did. What you did.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. Man, this was fun. I appreciate you, Jared. Thanks a lot. Good luck to you guys this season. Be looking forward to following you. I would love to have Miguel Tello on the show at some point, but we got to get some more of your players, Zach, and some of your new players on later on in the year.
Nobody City. I won't wish you good luck, Jared. I'm still a competitor. Go Bayou City!
Hey man, that's a team we didn't even mention, but I'm curious to see, because they picked up, they got some good pickups, man. And
they're kind of in the same boat as you guys. They've done some good retooling.
Big Joe has returned home. So,
yeah, I saw that.
We're all good. We're all good.
Sleep.
I'm ready to come out retirement, man. Go see me out there in this August. Jared just absolutely joking.
Oh yeah, sweating it up, man.
Yeah.
I didn't say it, but I was going to point out, Jared, that your team deciding that you guys are going to still, keep things in house. Local players that eliminated Seth and I being able to come over and fill some of those holes you guys got, man. Right. We could have helped you guys you could have had an offensive and defensive MVP. Come right back, man.
Exactly.
Hey, we never know. There could be some in-season injuries. Like,
we want to tap in on some of that $50,000 you guys be spending. Right. All right, man. Good luck to you guys. Thanks a lot, Jared. Thank you, Seth Dog. Thank you, Mr. Frank Porter. We'll catch you all next time.